Hey, this is Langerman from Violinna.live, helping you along your musical journey. This video is about spiccato. I haven't made a spiccato video in a very long time actually, so I thought, you know what, let's bring it back. And actually, in my most recent community post, I asked what are some of your biggest challenges in the bow technique, and one of the answers was how to make the spiccato more elegant, more smooth and maybe softer. Because very common actually, the spiccato can get a little bit too bouncy or make a harsh sound. So in this video we're going to explore actually three factors that are going to affect the sound quality of the spiccato. So let's practice spiccato on a scale. Let's take A minor scale, for example. You can pick any scale you want. Now play 2 octaves and play each note 4 times. Maybe medium tempo. So now we're going to explore what can we do to make the spiccato a little bit more elegant, and what can we actually do the opposite. Also, if we understand what makes it harsher, what makes it more bouncy, we'll understand what not to do actually. So the first factor is actually the bow tilt. Notice that if we place all of our bow hair on the string, naturally the bow is going to bounce higher. Actually, if you stay in the same spot and just kind of go like this, notice that the bow's bouncing naturally. I'm not forcing it. It's kind of like a ricochet. Now if I do the same thing and I tilt the bow, what's going to happen? It doesn't want to bounce quite as high. So I'm going to tilt the bow again to make it flat. So because it naturally bounces higher with flat hair, and if I play the scale like this, it becomes more percussive. The notes become much shorter. You can almost not hear a clean pitch at this point because it's almost just doing this. So the second element is going to be bow length versus bow height. So in spiccato we can play around with different bounce heights and also different horizontal bow lengths. So depending on what combination we have, it's going to affect the sound. So what we're going to do now is we'll play the same scale with a tilted bow, and then we're going to play around with the length of the bow. So now I'm going to add more bow length and try to stay closer to the string. See what happens. Okay, so as you heard, the notes, they got a little longer. They were still off the string because you could hear each one coming off, but you could hear that the sound quality was completely different. It was more like a brush stroke at this point. So the third thing we're going to look at is the contact point. So depending on what string you play and also depending on what dynamic and color you want, the contact point is going to affect this. So actually, because I started this on the G string, the scale. For G string, we want to be a little closer to the fingerboard for a cleaner sound, naturally. And the higher strings, we want to be a little closer to the bridge. And what I'm going to do is, actually, instead of playing the scale, let's take a note somewhere in the middle of the scale, like D maybe, D on the A string, and listen to how the sound changes if I change the sounding point. So for this note, because it's on the A string, it doesn't sound so good near the fingerboard. So because there's less string tension here. So it seems to sound better right around here. It's going to be a little bit different for your instrument, but notice that on different strings this is going to change. So on the G string, if I repeat that first note of the scale, so this is the contact point that did not sound so good on the A string, but on G it sounds better. Now I'm going to change it. Now notice how when I got closer to the bridge, the sound got very harsh and almost ponticello sounding. So depending what string you're playing, you'll have to adjust the contact point a little bit. So now let's put these elements together. But before we get into it, if you're getting any value from this video so far, please give it a quick thumbs up down below so that YouTube is more likely to share it with other folks and to support this channel. So quick summary, 3 elements to make a more elegant, smoother spiccato. Bow tilt, bow length, and less height, stay close to the string, and adjust your contact point accordingly. So now we're going to add another element to all of this, and that is the speed. We haven't really played at another tempo yet. So in order to go faster, we'll want to change where we are on the bow. So we'll have to go more towards the middle. So keep in mind that because we're going to go faster, we are going to use smaller bow length, but we're going to have to adjust the bow height accordingly as well. So we have to stay really close to the string now. And notice that I tried to also do a crescendo. So when I made a crescendo just now at the end, I had to add more bow length and I had to move my contact point a little closer to the bridge. So there are all these variables that are involved. Now there is one more thing that you can consider with all of this. Consider the nature of your own bow, because every bow is a little bit different. What I noticed from my own personal experience is that, this is just from my experience, so maybe it's different for you. I have a carbon fiber bow, and I noticed that those bows, I've tried some others as well, I noticed those bows, they are a little harsher in general. They have very good control of spiccato, but they do seem to have a little harsher sound, and they do seem a little bouncier than the wood bows. So that's just something to keep in mind. Also, with wood bows, keep in mind where the natural curve is, because a good spiccato on your bow might be in a slightly different location than on mine. I mean, general rule is that the slower spiccato will be a little closer to the frog near the balance point, and the faster one will be more in the middle. But I've played with some bows where the stick was not entirely straight with the hair, so you want to definitely check to make sure that the camber of the bow is good, because if it's a little bit off, that can actually affect a lot of the control of your spiccato. So just keep that in mind. And of course, not a big deal, but sometimes we forget how much rosin we put on our bows, and that's another element you can think about. There are so many factors out there. The rosin, not so much, you know, it's going to wear off after some time. If you put on a lot, it's going to be a little bit harsher. Also depends what kind you're using. Also, how clean the bow hair is, and whether it needs a rehair. Sometimes that affects the control of spiccato of the string strokes a little bit. But most important factors to remember is that flat hair will make the bounce higher. Tilted bow will make the bounce softer. More height will make it more percussive. More length will make it more brushy. Different contact points on different strings and different dynamics levels, they are going to affect the sound. So those are the most important elements. And let me know what you are working on. I would like to know. And also, what are some other things about spiccato that you find tricky? Let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, happy practicing.